Hello, and welcome to Why Did My Builder Do That? The weekly podcast that will answer your questions about home design, home building, and much more. Of course, we will be asking, why did my builder do that? But sometimes we will ask, why didn't my builder do that? Or, will my builder do that? Or even, does my builder know about this? Each week, we will tackle new questions and hopefully provide insight into designing, choosing a builder, building, financing, and even maintaining or remodeling a home. From time to time, we will be looking at why or how something went wrong, but we will be asking about new building products and new building techniques. Along the way, we will also be talking about building standards and warranties. We invite you to email us questions, and we will make every effort to include them in future podcasts, or at the least, we will send back information or a comment on your questions. Email us at WDMBDT@gmail.com. Why would my builder do that? Join us now for Why Did My Builder Do That?
Hello, and welcome to Why Did My Builder Do That? Again, joining you is Gary Dunn with the Custom Home Building Consultants and Joe Bronson with Home Central Realty. Today, we're going to go over a few items of questions that have been sent in, and we will answer those. And then hopefully, as you're watching this, you'll think of some other items that maybe you folks might want to send in, and we can build a podcast around them. So, Gary, thanks for joining.
Thanks, Joe. And I'm just going to dive right into it here. We've had several questions, and I guess to condense them down to one question, what do you mean by built-ins? What's a built-in?
Well, built-ins, as you can see on the screen, would be some form of shelving, cabinetry, TV stands, anything of that nature that typically is not part of the house, if you will, as in the construction phase of it. It normally is going to be in the finished materials. As you can see, we can do built-ins for closets, we can do built-ins for pantries, built-ins for family rooms / great rooms to house your TV and stereo equipment, if anybody does that anymore. And also just all those random items that we would all call from the old days knickknacks that you use for decorating. So that's what we would call built-ins.
Okay. I guess my next question, and we got this one a lot, is will my new home include any built-ins? But I can't tell from the plan whether I'm getting built-ins or not. What should I look for?
Well, oftentimes you're not going to be able to see that on the plan unless the builder has become very specific, or someone like Gary is designing a house and he's going to stipulate where built-ins are going to go and what they may look like. So in most cases, you're going to need to have that conversation with your builder. If it's a production builder building in a subdivision, they'll probably have options available to you, whether it be to be built or whether it be just pre-made cabinets that they'll be purchasing. If it's a builder that uses a cabinet maker, then it's a matter of having a conversation with that cabinet maker. So you need to have that conversation right up front when you're agreeing to build with the builder to make certain that they are included. If they don't provide at least an allowance or some kind of option, if you will, that they do include in their build contract. So please be certain to ask about that. If that's something that you want, have an idea in mind, and ask about whether or not those built-ins will be there or not.
Okay. Just a quick aside to that. Can the built-in match my kitchen cabinets if I wanted them to?
Absolutely, they can. A couple different ways. Again, if it's a builder that's using cabinets that are from a manufacturer or a supplier, oftentimes they'll have cabinetry that you can use for built-ins, whether it be shelving units, whether it be long units with doors on them. There's many different options that they have available, and you can match that. And for that matter, you can also do that when it comes to if you're having your cabinets built by a cabinet maker. They'll be able to use the same type of wood. They'll be able to paint or stain so they'll be able to match, and it will be a very, very fluid, consistent look from your kitchen to your area that you have your built-ins, whether it be you can see them by sight, or it's a matter of you have to walk to another room to see or what have you. But yes, you absolutely can have them match.
Okay. What if my builder won't do built-ins? What if he just doesn't have the capability or the desire to do that, but I know that I want something? How do I address that?
Well, then it's a matter of asking the builder if it's something that you can go outside of their parameters as to what they do. So if they just flat out don't do it, it very well could be that you might be able to bring in a cabinet maker yourself, or look at different options from that standpoint and communicate that with your builder. So you want to make certain that it's a collaborative partnership, that the builder has resources that they can help. They just may not do built-ins, but they certainly can help with contacts, resources, and so on, that they'll be able to help you through that process. So some builders just don't do them. Nothing wrong with that. It's just that they've opted not to do that.
Well, that's my next question. Why don't they do that? What about that process doesn't work for that big builder?
Well, in most cases, you're getting down to the very end at that point, and that's going to be handled by the trim carpenter in most cases, or the cabinet installer. And you're down to the very end. They're looking to get things closed. And if you have a situation where it's not already a set option, that you can say, here's a cabinet, here's a shelving unit, here's a base unit, all of those types of things. If you're not able to see that, now it's a matter of they have to be built. And is that communication going to be strong enough to be certain that what you are wanting is what they're able to provide? And specifically, when you get down to that stage of construction, I know I'm like anybody else, and that is I want to get in. So if it ends up being that the material isn't there on time for it to be built, or it's just going to take a while for that trim carpenter to build it, that can impede your move-in time as well.
Okay. $1 million question. Hopefully not $1 million, but how much should I expect to pay for built-ins?
Well, as I've said with several things in many of our podcasts, Gary, and that is it depends. There's many, many variables that go into what built-ins are going to be cost-wise, and that is the material. Is it a particle board, which a lot of cabinets are made out of nowadays? There's nothing wrong with that. But from a cost aspect, that's probably going to put you on the lower end of the spectrum, not necessarily in quality, but only in cost. It could be cabinets that are going to be made, or shelving that's going to be made out of maple or oak or alder. There's all types of different material that are going to be out there. So you may find that you might be able to do a built-in that's minimal, and you may only spend somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,000 or $1,500 for that. But golly, you can just the world is your oyster when it comes to designing things, and you can have built-ins that can go as high as $10, $15, $20,000. I know it sounds crazy, but that will depend on the type of wood and the finish that you are going with.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give myself a tiny little commercial here, Joe. As you know, I am a designer, and this is the design I actually did. So for our listeners out there, I do offer that service as well, and would be happy to talk to you.
Well, that's a very good point, Gary, and you've done this for so daggone long, and the issue there is that communication. I believe you've got a good set of ears that when a potential client is discussing what they'd like to do, not only do you come up with great ideas, but you come up with an incredibly detailed plan, as you can see here, that a cabinet maker or a trim carpenter can build by, and they will get what they've described. So sorry for not giving you a commercial, but you did a nice job there. So
all right, thanks. You mentioned wood. I think you said alder and maple. Is there a specific type of wood that I need to ask for my built-in, or is there reasons to choose different ones?
Well, it truly will depend on what that finish is going to be. I think from my own personal viewpoint, to be able to give you the most flexibility, I would think that you'd want to go with a maple. Maple takes paint very well, and maple also takes stain very well. There are other types of wood that could be used. If you're looking for a traditional style with a heavy grain to it, you might be looking at an oak cabinet. In most cases, that oak cabinet will be stained versus painted, because once you paint it, it really does show the grain, and that might not be the look you're going for. The alder has a lot of graining to it. When I say graining, I mean different than oak. It has a lot of variable panels. So it can be a very unique look. And if you're looking for something that is much more uniform, that might not be the right approach for you. But you will find that in most cases, a maple cabinet using that type of wood will be a great option for you. And even in sometimes they might even talk about doing poplar. And poplar typically would be for a painted cabinet versus a stained cabinet. But one thing about poplar, it's a soft wood. So that day-to-day use in the kitchen, specifically in the kitchen, may end up being some detrimental aspects when it comes to denting and scratching and those types of things. So my bet is to always go with maple.
All right. Well, good advice. What if my builder didn't include any built-ins in my price? What choices again do I have for that?
Well, the choices that you're going to have are going to be working with your lender to see if you can do a contingency fund, not only just for built-ins, but for several things. If there are items that you find either one, weren't included in your original agreement, or two, you found something online and you go, oh my gosh, I have to have it. The other route is that you'll be paying cash. The builder will do a change order. They'll get pricing for you. And then in turn, you'll be writing a check for those items. If you are in a position where you've got what's again called the contingency fund, and that's for those additional items that you just didn't plan on up front, then possibly you can do that. And in this case, this is another example of a design that Gary did. So you can see that this is a pretty extraordinary area for a dog wash, laundry facility area, and just basically a large mud room that you've got. But these types of things can be thought of and brought in afterwards, as long as you've got those funds available to pay for it.
So what you're saying is that my builder might be complete with my project, but there's still some funds in a contingency fund that I can go ahead and contract for this work after he's finished and still move in with a beautiful built-in and not have to get the house covered with sawdust.
You hit the nail on the head there. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. It's a very important item that's something to discuss up front with your lender. Some lenders will allow a contingency fund and some lenders will not. So it just all depends. And those are just questions that when you make selections with builders and you use, and I'll toot our horn again, but you use experts such as us that have been doing this for over 40 years each, that you've got the opportunity to discuss those items and we can point out some of those highlights that you might want to be looking out for when it comes to doing your financing.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we've come to an end to another podcast, and before I introduce you, I'm just going to say that I think there were enough questions raised there that we might do a deeper dive into how to design a built-in and what to look for and so forth. And I think everybody should look forward to that in the near future.
Absolutely. We intend to have our podcasts on our website on an ongoing basis, so always check back and take a look as to what new podcasts have we released. But also send in your questions, send in comments. If you've got some things that you want to know about, send them to us. The email address that we've got is WDMBDT@gmail.com. It's on the screen. That stands for Why Did My Builder Do That? You can send them to us at that point. We may not wait until a podcast releases to answer your question, but anything you might come up with, just hit us with that and we will try our best to answer. But please do take a look at our website to take a look for podcasts that will be coming out soon. So thanks again for viewing and have a great week.
Hey, thanks everybody.